Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Tech Talk, brought to you by Ever.Ag. This is your weekly Tech Talk feed for all things tech and all things talk. Each week we bring you updates on the technical markets with unique perspectives from an amazing team of analysts, mostly Andy and Cody, with the intention of educating market participants on all things technical analysis. I am your guest co-host, Jim Matthews, reporting from the Chicago office. Joining me today, Andy Fallman. Andy, how are you today?
I'm doing spectacular, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I have very big shoes to fill from Cody's absence. I'm trying to step in for Cody. It's an impossible task to live up to his performance on a week-to-week basis.
Good question for you. How come you didn't shave your head for this?
I thought about it. I thought about shaving it, keeping the clippings, putting them on my face to replace Cody. But again,
That would have been cool.
Yeah, but I just can't swing it.
You just can't swing it? You need like a black polo with a black t-shirt underneath and like a headband or something like that.
I know.
Maybe a motorcycle.
Definitely a motorcycle.
Definitely a motorcycle. Not a grill, though. You can't have a grill.
No, heavens no.
We haven't done Tech Talk in a while. So thanks for rejuvenating the Tech Talkness.
Thank you for having me. It's amazing to be here and to try and sub in the grain feed intro with Tech Talk.
You did a phenomenal job. All right.
Thanks very much.
On that note, the whole world is just they're dying to know your technical analysis and opinion of corn. This is Dec Corn. This is your wheelhouse right here, Jimbo. Jimbo land. Jimbo's wheelhouse.
It really is. And we're trying to leave the fundamental analysis out of this because it's Tech Talk. Let's dive right in. I mean, for one, for Dec Corn, $5 has been that like holy grail, if you will, for a long time. We've been away from it for a solid year and a half plus. It's been away from $5. But we came down back in May, hit it. Back in July, hit it. August, we've been managing to stay under it, kind of in this range of, let's say, 475, 480-ish, up to $5. That's been a difficult range to break out of lately. You've got it circled there back in July before that second little heat wave came through, all getting bunched up into that area. And it feels like we're kind of back into that congestion again now.
Question for you. Do you think, so in the past we've seen where you have kind of like an almost, I don't know if I would call this an ascending wedge just yet, but like somewhat like you have a slight move in the opposite direction of what was like the preceding larger moves. Obviously, we broke from 564 down to 480-ish, call it. You're getting like a very small ascending wedge. That's usually like in this case, it would be a prelude to further weakness. I guess, in your opinion, what would make you sell this? Like technically, what would make you sell this contract?
I think I would probably wait to step in if we can either get to the upside of that channel and or push through it. There is an outstanding gap still at 525.5 on this daily December chart. That's the one thing that continues to just kind of hover around the back of my mind is what if we could still break out, skyrocket to the upside. That's the lingering target up there for me in theory, gaps are meant to be closed.
Gaps are meant to be closed. You are doing a phenomenal job filling in for Cody.
Wow, thank you.
You brought in a gap. Nobody had, you're just like, bam, gap chaser. Here we go.
That's right. Mind the gap.
Mind the gap. That's right. Yeah, I guess the only thing that would make me, take the other side of that is if I just pulled this up here. So the low was 473 and some change, call it 474. I think if you got to close at like 472 and then open lower after that, it could get really dicey here. Because again, you had an attempt to have a slight rally, but I look at this and say, you had this big break that in response to that, the bulls couldn't really do much of anything with it. Like this is a little noisy. It tried to rally a smidge. I mean, this is 475. This high from that day was a little over $5, 506, but couldn't maintain it. Another shot at $5, couldn't hold it. So you have this like very, very small upward, like again, like continue, almost like a continuation of this break.
Yeah.
So if, here's the weekly, this is what kind of bugs me too.
Yep.
That's not looking too rosy. What stuck out to me about this, Jimbo, was right here, right where we broke out from. 438. That feels like the next little target.
I think if you have been a bull of the last, 2 to 3 weeks, and you've been wondering, have I found the bottom at 475, 480 ish? Because we do continue to try and grind out this area, and maybe you wonder, okay, bears aren't really stepping in and hammering this thing down, so maybe I've got a chance at actually catching this bottom. And that it's been a very like grinding, rounding out type of move here. So if you were a bull holding out hope, you would think that maybe this is when you try to time out that low, especially on like the December contract, with that chance of maybe we make one more run back up and puncture $5, puncture that gap. But I would have to imagine like the start of this week when December corn essentially failed $5. I think it missed it by half a cent. That probably had to have been pretty discouraging for bulls that we could not achieve it, let alone break through it and hold it. I think the one day last week when we did actually manage to grab it, it lasted a day, if that.
Okay.
So this has had to have been a very discouraging and frustrating run for corn bulls down here. But if you were, the flip side of that is if you were uber bearish, you have to be wondering what's holding us up, right? It's what's stopping us from making this run down to 450, let's say.
Sure. Well, to me, so while you're chatting here, I was just looking at this close. So this is a weekly. It's a weekly continuation of corn. So last week was 461 was the low. Didn't settle there.
Yep.
Today we settled on that low. So, let's say we're unch tomorrow, you're going to settle basically on the low here on the weekly basis. And then if you open next week lower, so like Sunday night, I think it's a quick trip to 437, 440 type number.
Yeah.
This chart looks very weak.
Oh yeah. I would just add the caveat that the lead month on that continuous weekly is September, and we are entering September delivery period tomorrow.
Okay. Well, you know what?
So
That is
caveat there.
That right there is just like a golden nugget of information for our listeners. Like you just dropped a piece of gold on the ground and said, please pick this up.
Pick this sucker up.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go back to the daily real fast. I think you and I are in agreement. It's just kind of like, where do you want to, like, if we get a shot at settling over, like, I guess the flip side of it too is if you did settle over $5, you're saying that like this gap becomes, almost like a target, right? It's that one thing that's kind of lingering. It's like cold storage for dairy right now. It's like not fitting a big bearish narrative.
Exactly right. And I think you have the 20-day on there that we've really also been struggling to find much activity above, right? We've maybe closed one session above that 20-day. That one day I referenced when we actually did push through $5 and it didn't last. That resistance, the top side of that wick was the 20-day. So unfortunately for bulls, that's become a pretty formidable moving average, and we just kind of stayed glued to it really now over the last week plus.
All right. Well, something to be mindful of. Either way, I think
something to be mindful of.
So I think a big takeaway: if we get a close back below one of these lows right here, let's just take a quick peek at that again. Yeah, this low right here. So what? Oh shoot, your Jimbo's wheelhouse is over it. Sorry about that. So 473. That's basically kind of like the number right there, right? Like 473-ish. Let's say we get a close below that. It's probably a quick trip to 4.5.
You would think so.
All right. Let's go to the other side of Jimbo's wheelhouse. This is Nov Beans.
I
don't know. This isn't looking too pretty here. What do you think, Richard?
It's not looking too pretty, but we've had that conversation before, right?
sure have.
We had that conversation at the end of July, and very very similar moves of the. It's like you've tried to skyrocket up out of the atmosphere, and you're in space, and suddenly you're just like floating for a hot second, and that's your high, and then you come crashing back down to earth for a bit. I think it's interesting that we did hold essentially right at $13 for November beans. We came down and hit 1280. I saw you had those the retracement on start. I mean, that was almost a perfect test of that retracement level from the June-ish, May-ish lows up to the July-ish highs. Almost a perfect test of that.
Wow.
And then a nice bounce off, and then a very similar feel of quite the run to open up this week, gap higher on Sunday night, Monday morning, quickly close it, and then suddenly, that's not a pretty candle for today's close.
No, it's not. It's really not. So so I drew the first three legs.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fourth one? Is this going to be an M and like go test 1280 again? $13?
I think you could argue you at least try and bust through that mess of moving averages you have there. I mean, that's just kind of a sloppy little grouping of some of those moving averages. I think $13 is the nice round number that the market had a very difficult time pushing through for a solid week and a half as we really got into August there. So that would probably be the next target.
Okay. Did you know, by the way, so this is a sidebar for you. There was a guy that was on the floor for a while, and he came here from England, and I believe he said that like the word or the phrase for mess is dog's dinner. This looks like a dog's dinner.
Oh. There you go.
Kind of mess. I mean, when you think about it, a dog's dinner is pretty messy.
Yeah. Well, my dog eats a clean dinner, I suppose.
Does he really?
What's a she, first of all?
Okay. Well, sorry about that.
I mean, come on. And then, she's pretty clean. She's pretty dainty.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm just way off base now, aren't I?
Well, I don't know. Maybe dogs aren't clean and dainty.
I feel like cats are pretty clean. I have a cat.
Yeah.
She keeps herself pretty clean. I mean, like
cats are good at that. Cats are better about it, I think.
There's not cat food strung around all over the place every now and again. I mean, if my
kids
that's
true. You find some kibbles floating around. Try to stop the kids from eating them. All that good stuff.
Okay. Well, I've heard it's pretty tasty. So
I've heard that it is also.
All right. I guess I know what I'm doing for dinner tonight.
Especially with peanut butter.
I will say for beans, what's something else to be mindful of too is so like the momentum. So this is I keep forgetting, it's a 12-period momentum here, this first one. It's falling short of where it kind of bounced from, right? And so what this is essentially saying is that like bulls are starting to run out of gas.
Yep.
Right? And so like you're starting to, if we were to cross zero, for example, then like over the last 12 periods, we're lower than we were over an average of that.
Yep.
So like in this case, we saw like back here in early June, like bulls obviously took a big control of the market, and like these secondary indicators tend to trade technically as well, right? And so you're failing to get above this, this previous, like, I guess, area of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is another indication that an M is kind of looming here.
Yeah.
So if it does, I mean, I got to think that the next stop would be to go test all this noise, right? There was a lot of stuff going on right here.
Dog's meal.
Dog's meal, but not Jim's dog.
No.
Definitely not Jim's dog. Hang on, I'm going to look up dog's dinner expression. So if I look that up, in British English, both dog's breakfast and dog's dinner are used figuratively to denote a confused mess.
Yeah.
There you go. So I was right about that.
Breakfast too.
Yeah. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's all interchangeable. Yeah. I'm getting hungry. All right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think we are kind of in agreement. I mean, it looks like beans could have a bit of an M here.
Yeah.
And I guess in general, it kind of feels like grains could see some weakness.
Grains could feel some weakness, and two caveats. We mentioned the delivery period when we were talking about the continuous chart. Today's also the last day of the month of August, so Managed Money had a last hurrah here today to clean up their monthly P&L balances, if you will, right? So today was kind of a very much a liquidation mode type day, depending on which market they were in. And then tomorrow is first of the month. You head into a 3-day weekend. So just keep in mind, there's probably a little bit of either profit taking and or repositioning ahead of a holiday weekend here too. So there's a few things going on.
Couple things lingering around here, making it even more of a dog's dinner.
Couple two treat things.
Very Chicago of you. All right, fair enough. Hey, you know what? I appreciate the color there. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
All right, last but not least.
Yeah.
I put it Rocktober.
Oh yeah.
Cody were here. I feel like he'd have a hammer. I feel like he'd be hitting that hammer with both hands.
Oh, 100%.
Smashing stuff, buying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. His we would have broken the mouse.
Yeah. I mean, so did I tell you he only has a left click on his mouse?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The right click, it's gone. It's like just boop, gone. There's not even a Band-Aid there. It's just like, it's just poof, it's gone.
There's no use for it.
There's no use. Zero. So this is October Milk. We put Rocktober down. This has been it's been such a tricky trade, right? Because you had instances where it looks like it was trying to make a W. You love W's. And then bam, failed that. Not even close. But then did it again. And you had another like higher low type, relative to here. And like this price seemed to be something that it definitely didn't like 1770-ish.
Right.
The 1, 2, 3 times it tried to trade there, it promptly moved away from there pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So the measurement I took was to say, I think you can argue we broke out right around here. This is when it really started to accelerate higher.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it really depends on where you want to take the measurement, but a little bit more conservative would be to take it where it started to accelerate from. You take that and lay it on top of, depending on where you want to have it breaking out from, right? So if you say this here is where it broke out, which was on the 25th, right? So it cleared all this dog's dinner.
Yep.
You'd lay that basically on top of that and call it like a flagpole. I mean, it takes you over $20.
Yeah.
$20. So this October is getting really interesting. So what was current cash today, Jim? Let's take a peek. So 1840 using SEPway. If you add in 4-ish cents for a premium, you're talking like 1880-ish, 1875. That's not that we're not trading at that big of a premium, and it still doesn't start pricing for another couple weeks. Check out Bases Loaded with Joe, by the way, to learn more about that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I think if this market caught a whiff of a bid in cheese, and maybe we were up 1 or 2 cents, and the way it's been trading, like today, for example, no bid offer in cash, kind of a dud. We were higher heading into cash, decent volume too. When I say higher, I mean October was. Mm-hmm. And then, we had a quick step back to like 5 to 10 lower or whatever it was. And then just basically throughout the afternoon, early afternoon, after cash, steadily started buying it. And here we are we're above that close. We're even basically trading. I think we closed right around the high of this move right here.
Yeah.
So you've left a lot of selling behind. Anybody that's selling it here, you have to go back to like early May to find somebody that's making money there. So it feels like it could have, I think what's coming is a blow off top. I certainly would want to be ready to sell something should we rally October, because the flip side is you're going to start talking about like a 210 type cheese number. I feel like that's going to run into some resistance. But yeah, this one looks like it could get a little spicy, Jim.
So do I continue to add to this long, or are you looking for the top here?
What a great question you just asked. What a phenomenal question.
Okay.
Probably I don't know if I'd want to be adding to longs. If you had them in, I'd probably make sure that you had orders to sell them.
Yeah.
This strikes me as the type of trade where, let's say you were getting long, or you are a producer or looking for spots to sell it. Like, let's say you like 19.5, easy number. Mm-hmm. It feels like the type of trade where you're going to want to have your order working, because you could trade a price and then be away from that price pretty quickly. Right? It feels like you could see something kind of like this, where, we pop, go to $20 or, pick 1975, and the cheese market just starts to run out of gas, relative to the rest of the world, we get expensive, something like that. And you start to see offers show back up, like when we were at like 203, 204 block, and we promptly have a day like this, that it gets very difficult to sell something. So yeah, no, there's been some interesting trade here too. We've seen some trades, some out of the money calls, like the 19.5, 1975s. again, I feel like a rally here is coming that you probably should be looking at potentially trying to sell something into, or at least be letting go of longs or hedging off longs, buying puts or something like that.
It doesn't quite have the feel like when we were looking at the Nov Bean chart. Like it doesn't quite have that feel yet of gasping for air.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as just straight up, if you will. I mean, this has been a kind of steady climb of entering a new threshold. I mean, you got down to what, 1650 down there, and you made your way back up, pulled back into 1750, a little bit of dog's dinner throughout that little range there.
Yep.
You do just kind of ride that 50-day very nicely. Once you got back above it, finally, you've essentially have held it since then. So yeah, it doesn't feel like it needs to just fall apart the way that those two rallies fell apart on Nov Beans. Yeah, just as someone who does not study milk, and sometimes Ryan does this on some of our team calls as well. But hey, outsider just looking at a chart, what do you think? So it doesn't feel like it necessarily needs to fall apart that dramatically. So maybe your targets then are back to 1750, where there is a whole bunch of support there throughout that dog's buffet, if you will.
Dog's buffet. I feel like you'd be a great restaurant owner. I'm just going to throw that out there. Just like we'll let that simmer.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, I think you and I are on the same page here with everything, right? I mean, it feels like it gets a little popper here. We'll see what Rocktober does, but it does. It feels like I said. The other piece of it too is we're starting to see some nice volume pick up.
Yeah.
So today we traded 668 contracts on a day when cash literally did nothing. So yeah, I feel like we're getting ready to put in a premium right before we start pricing.
Okay.
That's just what I think. So on that note, I can't thank you enough for joining and helping out with the hosting and all that hair. I'm not used to all the hair too, like
lots of
the
hair.
opposite side of the table. There was I think I forget what year it was. Maybe Paige would know, but like there was a year where he didn't like shave or like do anything like I don't know for a full year, and he kind of had like a Costanza thing going on,
like one of the old friars or something, maybe or
yeah. Comes in with like one of those like monk robes. That'd be great.
Yeah. Halloween's coming up right around the corner.
What are you going to be?
Throw it out. Now I might be a monk. Or I'll just be Cody.
You could just be Cody. That's right. Get like a hammer. You could be Cody.
Yeah. Bye.
Just that's the only word that comes out of your mouth. Yeah. Bye. Hey, Jim, how's it going? Bye.
NSYNC style. Bye.